Hi and welcome to the Geek Legion of Doom. This is a superhero movie review and I'll be having a look at the movie Orgazmo. So yes, Orgazmo. I might be pushing it with the old superhero films here. Orgazmo, as you can imagine by the title, is a sex comedy and it's actually written, starred and I think maybe possibly even directed by Trey, who is one half of the team that brought us South Park. And it tells the tale of a Mormon who is on his rounds doing the knocking on the doors, trying to convert people and whatnot, when he comes across a porn shoot. And the director there is actually making a porn film, like a superhero parody porn film. And, you know, he's getting pissed off because his leading man is a bit of a wimp and can't really do any of the sort of the action scenes. And basically gets sort of pissed off with him and kind of wants to sort of like getting frustrated with the shoot and whatnot. So the Mormons obviously knock on the door and sort of wants to get rid of him, and he orders his kind of like his cronies to sort of try and kick their asses. But the character who's played by Trey is a bit of a kung fu genius, well, by all accounts, and manages to defend himself quite well. And the director sees this and kind of offers him a role as Orgazmo, to sort of, because he wants to have a bit more of a a actual fighting and a bit more action involved and stuff as well. Now, obviously, him being a Mormon is kind of obviously against pornographic and things and that, and kind of doesn't want to do it, but he gets sort of talked into it because he wants to marry his girlfriend and he's offered a lot of money, and the director says we don't actually have to do any of the actual sex and the sex bits, but do the pretty much all the sort of all the other work and all the other sort of shots involved and things like that. So he sort of reluctantly agrees and ends up becoming Orgazmo, and there he kind of meets his kind of sidekick, if you like, who's this other kind of like little small guy, and his name is ChodaBoy. So they end up having to obviously go and make this sort of Orgazmo film, and whenever there's actually sex, he sort of has to sort of be swapped out for a stunt cock. And the film is made, and it's a big hit, and we see it's number 3rd on the all-time box office, and it's a massive hit. And obviously the director doesn't want to let him go and kind of wants to sort of like suck him into the life, so to speak. But we also know is the director has also got his sort of his hands in some sort of criminal activity as well. Now his sidekick ChodaBoy, Orgazmo's sidekick ChodaBoy, he's a bit of a scientific genius, and has made a real sort of weapon which they use on set, which is kind of like the prop thing where he has this kind of ray that makes sort of men drop their goo and ejaculate, and he makes a real life version of this, but he's too small build to actually use it because it's quite heavy. So the actual guy who's now Orgazmo is really Orgazmo, because now he has this real weapon, and then sort of fighting some crime with it, and ultimately defeating the bad guys at the end of the day. So that's the sort of plot of the film in a very sort of a small nutshell. It stars quite a lot of real life porn stars. I will say this: it's not a particularly gratuitous film, despite the actual the subject matter. It is, it's not going to be for everyone, because obviously we are dealing with porn here, and there are a few boobs and bums and sort of sex toys, and obviously a lot of implied stuff. But I don't think you see too much gratuity on screen if you're kind of a bit, sensitive to that sort of thing. It's obviously quite a bit of a silly film, and its sort of tongue is firmly in cheek, and it's a spoof in a lot of places. Its humour, I would say, is a little bit hit and miss. I don't think it's quite as sharp as the sort of the South Park TV show, even though it has pretty much the sort of a lot of the creative team behind it, and pretty much Trey Parker at least, anyway. So it has some funny moments, but overall, I would say that the film is amusing in regards to its comedy, but not necessarily laugh out loud. It does have it pokes fun at the sort of superhero genre, and we have that kind of joke that we've seen a few times before, where sort of people don't recognise him with his mask on, even though it's obviously doesn't really hide all that much and things like that. So it has a few pokes at the sort of the sort of superhero genre as well. Now also there's some of the actual, it does have a couple of fight scenes in it, and I wasn't expecting it, but the actual fight scenes are actually not too bad, and they're pretty well choreographed, and are actually quite exciting to watch. There you go. So that's pretty much what you got to say. It's okay as a film. I don't think it's certainly one of the one you'll probably remember all that much. I think that it's obviously quite campy and quite sort of stupid. There are some sort of interesting sort of sub characters, including this guy who's one of the sort of like still photographers on the porn set who was always sort of saying inappropriate stuff and things like that. And Trey Parker, I think, makes a pretty decent leading man in this, and he's quite sort of, you can buy into him as this sort of Mormon when we clearly know he's not. Now I think if you're a particularly religious person, this is obviously does poke quite a lot of fun at sort of religions that again that may end up offending some people. So this film certainly isn't going to be for everyone. But overall, it's a fairly fun movie. Now, as I say, I'm maybe stretching that a little bit, sort of bannering this one under a sort of superhero film, but it's more of a spoof or a parody of superhero genre, along with obviously the porn genre and action genre and things like that. So I'm going to give this film probably a 4.5 out of 10. I don't think it's a particularly memorable film. I'd sort of completely forgotten about it, and I'd seen it before until I'd sort of just happened to sort of come across it for this review. So 4.5 out of 10. Let me know what you think. Leave me a comment, and I look forward to seeing you next time. Bye for now.